Hi, this is Charles Vacassian, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hotseat podcast.
Yes, hello everybody once again, and welcome back to the Dynasty Hot Seat. You know what it is? It's the only Dynasty show out there that's a certified inferno. And today, super lucky to have a new guest on the show today. We got Charles Vacassian on the show. You can find him over on Twitter at ff_ChuckV, and he does, well, what doesn't this guy do? He's working a little bit for Fantasy Pros. He's working a little bit for Fantasy Six Pack. He's working a little bit for the Dynasty Nerds, for the Coaches Fantasy, and even does bits and bobs in other sports as well. But we're here today to talk a little bit about Dynasty Fantasy Football. So, mate, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing today? You all right?
I'm well, my friend. Thank you for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be able to come on as a guest on a fine podcast such as yours and chop up about some football.
Yes, can't wait. And we're just going to get right into segment number one. Segment number one, the art of war, which is, just some hints and tips that you got for Dynasty fantasy football players out there. It could be a new player, it could be a real seasoned pro, or it could be somebody in between those two. What kind of tips you got for us in terms of, Dynasty fantasy football?
Oh, no, tip number one for me, and I find this to be extremely important when it comes to building a team, is always have draft picks, because I've been in a lot of leagues before with a lot of guys who, their only concern is to build the best team as possible in the here and now. And while that's all fine and good, you may get a couple playoff appearances. If you shred your draft pick total, you're going to have nothing left to build your team with. If you don't have at least a couple first-round picks, a couple second-round picks, for maybe this year, 2023, 2024, it's going to be awfully hard to supplement your roster and basically maintain a continuous cycle. If you can do like a continuous retool where you slowly shed your aging players but keep bringing in young, fresh talent, you can maintain a healthy, competitive roster throughout the entirety of the dynasty league that you're in. But if you don't have those draft picks, your team's going to get old and it's going to wither, and your rebuild is going to take way longer than you may want it to. It could take 4 to 5 years as opposed to a quick 1 or 2 year turnaround. That's one of the main tips that I always like to give to people who are starting up, or even seasoned vets. Always have your draft picks.
Yeah, I really like that. Draft picks are so important. And, there's something that the value can just kind of skyrocket immediately. Like, even look at a guy like this time last year, people drafting somebody like Jamar Chase with just for one first round pick. And now, Jamar Chase is worth 3 first round picks plus, yeah. Maybe even, like that one first round pick can multiply if you do it properly into being worth, times 3, times 4 of that value. So having that there, and, I always like to say to people, you need to remember that these picks will eventually become players. So, think about what the value of that player is going to be and what you can turn that pick into down the road. So I really like that, keeping those picks, keeping them in your team, and yeah, being wary of those older players. That's what Dynasty Fantasy Football is definitely all about. So love that as a first tip. What else do you got for us?
Also, this was more like for people who are starting up for Dynasty, but find at least 2 to 3 players that you can form a solid core of your team around, like early in the draft. So obviously it depends on like what pick you would get in a startup. But if you could find, like you were talking about earlier, your Jamar Chase or your Justin Jefferson or your Najee Harris, find that one player at least that you could build your team around. Because if you mess up your draft and you don't come away with like a core piece, it's, something happens, like you end up with Derrick Henry in your first round, that's not like a core piece to build your team around, because Derrick Henry's 28, 29 years old, and he's closer to the end than he is to finding his prime. Yeah. So being able to find that long-term piece is key. Like I just did a startup draft, a few weeks ago. My first round pick, was Justin Jefferson. I feel confident in saying that Justin Jefferson will be on my team for a very long time. You can't say that for other guys. It's all about starting up, finding the key pieces to build your team around, and going from there. And it's obviously different if you're operating in a super flex league, or if you're operating in a league with maybe tight end premium, or tight end might have a little more value. So it obviously depends on the situation. But for your typical league, your typical dynasty league, find a core piece, running back or wide receiver, and run with it.
Yeah, I really like that. Get those cornerstones of your team set in, and the last thing you really want to be able to do is going into like week one being like, who am I going to play here? Like you should know, like you're not going to worry about who's going to be your wide receiver one. It's going to be Justin Jefferson the entire season, unless he gets injured. So yeah, having those cornerstone pieces, and Justin Jefferson can still be playing 10 years time. He's young enough that you don't have to worry about him if your league goes on that long. You can just keep him there. You never have to worry about it. So yeah, grabbing those young cornerstone pieces just helps you so much. So yeah, I love that as tip number 2. And Chuck, you got a third tip for us as well?
Yeah, this one's for some of the newbies out there, and that's just know your worth. Don't let yourself get fleeced, because it's basically a lot of the older, the more veteran fantasy football manager owners will sometimes try to take advantage of some of the new kids.
Ooh.
Sending them you know what I'm talking about, right?
So those sharks.
A lot of lopsided trade offers, and be like, oh, but this feels great for you because you get this and this and this. And, they try to explain it and lay it out because, this happened to me when I first started playing years ago. And, you got to know that, you know more about fantasy football than you give yourself credit for. And you may even know more than this moron who's trying to offer you a trade that is absolutely not worth it for you. So just know your worth, know what your players are worth, do a little research if you have to, but don't let yourself get fleeced. Don't let yourself get taken advantage of. And if you're someone in that league and you see something like that, let your league manager know, because the whole point is to have a fair competitive league. You don't want people taking advantage. You don't want collusion or anything like that.
No, yeah, you're right. You don't want. The worst one I've ever seen was last year, and a guy accepted who was the player? I think it was Deebo Samuel, but the guy sold Deebo Samuel for $50 worth of fab because I think he thought it was real. I think he thought it was real money. He's like, yeah, I'll sell Deebo Samuel if you give me $50. It's like, that doesn't work like that, man. Well, luckily the commissioner was like, no, that's not cool. You can't be doing that. So yeah, don't fall for that. Yeah, know your value, and don't be afraid to ask other people as well. Be like, hey man, I've got this trade offer. What do you think? I get messages all the time, from my mates, be like, what do you think of this trade offer? What do you think of this trade offer? So ask people, and if people around you think it's fair and you think it's fair, that they go for it. But ask for advice, especially if you're starting up. So yeah, absolutely love that as your third tip to Dynasty players. So do you have any more tips for us, or are we going to go right into our hot seat mock draft?
Well, I think that covered it. Why don't we do a little mocking?
Love it. So we're about to get into, the part where the hot seat really starts to take effect. We're going to get into the mock draft and see what we can do with Superflex startup draft. Okay, that's coming right up in part 2. All right, we are back at part number 2, the real meat of the show, the spiciest, the hottest part of the hot seat. It's the mock draft time. We got a startup, super flex, 12 team, 18 rounds, just the same as always. And the first thing, Chuck, that we're going to talk about is, in an absolutely ideal world, if you were allowed to choose exactly where you would start in this draft, what position would you pick and why?
Honestly, I like picking towards the back end of the first round because I like having that ability to pick back to back. So if I get pick 10, 11, pick 12, that's a great spot for me because I still know I can get a premium player at a premium position and then come right back around and get another one.
Nice. I really like it. We've not had a pick 10 in a long time, so I could slot you into pick 10 unless you want an 11 or 12 in particular.
Pick 10 is perfect. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, let's get pick 10 locked in then as we start the draft. So here we go. You can see our picks are locked in for 10, and then like you said earlier, we get to be right back on the board again as soon as we picked. So here we go. The names you'd expect coming off: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor, Justin Herbert, all the big guys flying off. And I thought you might have been able to get Jamar Chase there on your team, which would have been lovely, but he didn't quite fall. But here's who you've got available. You got Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Desean Watson, Dak Prescott, along with a few others. Is anyone standing out to you there, Charlie? What are you thinking?
Well, I admit this is a tough choice because the one downside of picking at 10 is that some of the more premium quarterbacks are going to go off the board for your selection. But that being said, it is super tempting to select Deshaun Watson. Given that he's going to have an elite supporting cast in Cleveland.
Yeah.
But I think my gut is telling me here to take Lamar Jackson. Because, after the trade of Hollywood Brown, there's a little less in the wide receiving core, which kind of means that more is going to fall on his shoulders, which means you're going to see more of a boost in his rushing totals.
Yep.
And still going to throw a lot. Don't get me wrong about that. But he's going to rely even more on his two-way ability. And I think that's going to lead to an increase in more rushing touchdowns, which is going to increase his fantasy output. So I like him as my quarterback, and especially for Dynasty. We know he's going to be around for at least the next 8 to 10 years. So lock me in for that.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, I think, you can't go too wrong with Lamar. Like, he sort of had maybe a slight dip of a year last year, but he still finished really high and really strong. And like you said, the top tier quarterbacks may have gone, but Lamar Jackson's not very far behind those guys. So you gotta love getting him in as your first quarterback. And here's that bonus we talked about earlier. We're right back on the board. We didn't miss too much. And you still got people like CD Lamb, Javonte Williams, Kyle Pitts still sitting up there, along with a plethora of other talent. Is anyone standing out to you there?
Not gonna lie to you, Connor. I was hoping we would get Najee Harris with this pick, but we just got sniped by the so that's not very nice. But
that pesky team two got us.
In a lot of my leagues, I am a huge Javonte Williams guy. I know that Melvin Gordon did sign back for one more year, but with the way Javonte performed last year, he's still only 21 years old. It's very clear that the reins in Denver are his, and I think he's going to be the 1A to Melvin Gordon's 1B as opposed to last year.
Yeah.
And being able to lock in a very young member of your running back room is very, very key for Dynasty early on. So I think the pick here has to be Javonte Williams.
Yeah, Javonte Williams, I mean, it was so impressive last year, like you said. And, Melvin Gordon is back in time, but not for too long either. And, who knows what's going to happen with, Russell Wilson there, who he strikes up a partnership with and how that goes. And, I think Javonte Williams is a real deal. He's there to stay. And like you said, at the start and one of your tips, you need to get those cornerstone pieces that you don't need to worry about. You don't need to worry about Javonte Williams. You can start him every week and it'll be just fine. So that is absolutely great getting the second pick. As here we go, back end of round number 3. You've got your Justin Fields up there, J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins in round 3 as well. He's dropped quite a bit there. Then Matthew Stafford, T. Higgins, and Aaron Rodgers, along with some other people there.
This is tempting because I am a Justin Fields believer, but the Bears are. I don't know. I don't know what to say about the Bears. The Bears just don't seem to know how to build an offense.
No.
They haven't been right for years, so I'm not really too confident they can do it for Justin Fields. Despite the fact that don't get me wrong, Bears fans, I love Justin Fields, but it's more about what's around Justin Fields than Justin Fields himself. I don't have belief in the Bears to build a good team around him, which would hurt his fantasy value because I don't think they can do it. J.K. Dobbins coming off a bad injury, but we know the talent's there because he had a great fan just a couple of years ago. T. Higgins, late rise here. But the name that almost stands out for me here, Connor, is new Jets running back Breece Hall.
Oh, of course.
I know they had Michael Carter last year, but they are clearly dedicated to putting talent around Zach Wilson. We saw them draft Garrett Wilson in the first round. We saw them bring in a couple other guys. They still got Jesus Christ, I'm losing it here, but they have weapons in that wide receiver. You have to forgive me. I think drafted Jeremy Ruckert, the tight end out of Ohio State, who I think is a very under tight end. And then I got Breece Hall, who is a elite 3-down running back. And I think that shifts Michael Carter to more of a complimentary role. And I think Breece Hall will kind of take over as the main back in that offense. And while I am tempted to take him here, I do have to consider the fact that we don't have a wide receiver yet. And I want to get one core piece for each room if possible, minus tight end, because I think we can wait on tight ends since we didn't get a premium tight end yet. But Mark Andrews is still
One thing about
drafting, Connor, you got all these picks and it's tough to narrow down. But you know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna get the stack and we're gonna take Mark Andrews to pair with Lamar.
Oh, I'll love it. Yeah, getting Mark Andrews in there. You've already got Lamar Jackson, and something I always say about Mark Andrews and these tight ends, like, you have such an advantage if you have Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, and what people are hoping Kyle Pitts will become. He hasn't done it yet, but if you converted Mark Andrews' points last year in a non-premium league, he would have been wide receiver 5. He got that many points. So you're getting to be able to play that at tight end is just incredible value for me. So I think, getting Mark Andrews in there. Now you got 3 players in your top 3 picks that, something Garrett Price said when he was on here is like, you can't miss in your first 3 rounds. And I think with Lamar and with Javonte and with Mark Andrews, I don't think you can miss with those picks. So I love the picks so far.
Now, this is where things get interesting. We still got Breece Hall, who I talked about earlier on the board, but then we got the trifecta of wide receivers, all kind of in their unique situation. Because I love DJ Moore, only 25, and he's shown the ability to produce. But Carolina's QB situation looks like it's going to be a mess because they have Sam Darnold. They just drafted Matt Corral, who conceivably could get an opportunity because that's just how bad Darnold has been. We got Deontay Johnson over in Pittsburgh, and they're going to be starting they could be starting Kenny Pickett. They could be giving Mitchell Trubisky. And either way, that's not too inspiring. And then we got Chris Godwin, who's going to have Tom Brady thrown to him. And we all know about Tom Brady, but Tom Brady doesn't have more than a year or 2 left. And what does that say for Chris Godwin post Tom Brady? Because I do have to think about the future. As much as I want to think about the here and now, Connor, I do have to think about the future.
Is Chris Godwin on the franchise tag, or is he signed a new deal? I can't quite remember.
I believe he signed for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Or 3 years. 3 years, $60 million, excuse me.
Yeah.
So maybe Brady's around that long. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But I do want to address wide receivers sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So going off of that, I do still want to get the guy who's going to be in the best situation. But at the same time, I can't reach. And I feel like Breece Hall is screaming value, especially for Dynasty. So the pick is Breece Hall. Because,
Breece Hall, love it.
Needs matter, but value is important too. BPA, that's what I say. And Breece Hall's the best player available on that list. Yeah,
I think Breece Hall is great value there. And, he's going in round 4 here. I think Breece Hall, this time next year, Breece Hall is going in round 1. I think he's going to be that good and just impress that much. And I think it's great value there at the back end of the 4th round. And here we are at the top of the 5th round. Sorry, we're going to end up at the back end of the 5th round.
We still got some great receivers left. Terry McLaurin only just got taken, so we know there's still some high-quality wide receivers left on the board.
Well,
so
I'm not
too worried about it. Like, look at that. See, this is perfect. This is beautiful. Okay, this is great. We got Devontae on the board. We got Keenan Allen. I love Keenan Allen. He may be a little older, but sometimes you got to build with a couple veteran pieces. I do like Keenan Allen. Treylon Burks, who I think is just an A.J. Brown prototype who Ryan Tannehill can thrive. We just talked about Garrett Wilson. I don't want to load up on too many pieces from the Jets because I don't want to go crazy on one, but I'm just saying Garrett Wilson. I like that. We still got a couple quarterbacks and Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones. Travis Kelce's still there, but I want to stay away from Travis Kelce because I don't want to be the one holding him when he falls off the cliff. This is tough. It's tough, but I think with an improved receiver room, with adding A.J. Brown, is going to give him some opportunity to thrive. So I do like Devontae Smith. But you know what? We're going to go with old reliable here. We may be passing us some younger options, but I want to get an established elite wide receiver for my room. We're going to take Keenan Allen.
Yeah, Keenan Allen is scraping out for me there as well, especially kind of the team that's being built now as well. You're pushing on that can't miss kind of player, and Keenan Allen again. He's proven it time and time again. He doesn't miss, and him and Justin Herbert are gold. So I think Keenan Allen's going to do very, very well in this team, and is a super solid receiver that you can set in every single week and not worry about it. And we're lucky now because I think there'll still be some awesome receivers still on the board whenever we get back up again. Yeah, Treylon Burks is still there. Garrett Wilson. Yeah, you got a plethora here.
Now, the choice here is only between 2 guys. I'll tell you that right now. This is between Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson. Yep. It's just a matter of who I think or who we think is going to be more likely to have longer-term success. Ryan Tannehill is a little bit on the older side, so we know that he's probably not going to be around for, the next 7 or 8 years. Zach Wilson was just recently drafted by the Jets. Yeah. Garrett Wilson just drafted this year, so we know they're going to be a dynamic duo for years to come. So we know he's going to have a stable QB situation as long as Zach Wilson can step up his game a little bit, which I am a believer in. So I do think that. So I think we're going to go with Garrett Wilson here. He distributed some game-breaking ability at Ohio State, and I think he's going to do the same thing here with the Jets and really open up that offense. So Garrett Wilson will be the selection.
Yeah, I love Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson, for my money, is the best receiver in the draft this year in terms of pure talent. And if you're right, if Zach Wilson can step it up a little bit, then he's going to really, really thrive on it. So let's get Garrett Wilson locked in, playing in that Jets offense that's quickly becoming bit of a dynasty darling offense at the minute with Breece Hall and Elijah Moore in there as well, Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson as well. I mean, there's a lot of high value dynasty pieces accumulating in that Jets team.
Yeah, certainly not what I expected to hear, but here we are.
Yeah.
So
it's a crazy world. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire in round 7. I think that's pretty good value. He's still going to be a starter.
Yeah, I think that's good value. He's going around the same time as Michael Carter is, who's Michael Carter might end up being like a J.D. McKissick kind of role at the minute, but he's still a good player for my money. Michael Carter just unfortunately not in the best situation for himself.
Would you mind humoring for me, Connor, and just going to the QB board so we can see who's available just at QB?
Yeah, just a QB. You got Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, then probably 2 QBs you don't want, and then Derek Carr as well, still sitting there. As Kenny Pickett's sitting there as well. That's kind of a risky one too, and Davis Mills, one of my favorite people to target in Dynasty at the minute, as well as Tom Brady still sitting down there too.
I don't want to reach. I think we can wait on QB. Let's go back to just the main board, please.
No problem. So Hawkinson and Bateman and Drake London up there, along with some other talented players too.
Seeing Drake London there is very intriguing. Seeing Jameson Williams there is also very intriguing. But I do like. I see James Conner sitting there. Not too much over there in Arizona. I think he's still got a couple good years left in him, and as an RB1. And also, I mean, I know we already have a tight end. But I do. Just saying out there for the folks at home, I do love TJ Hawkinson. If I didn't have Mark Andrews, this would be a screaming value on my board. But I mean, locking in a weapon in Atlanta long term to pair with Kyle Pitts. I mean, Drake London looks really nice here.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go with Drake London.
Yeah, I really like that pick of Drake London. I think Atlanta looks like they're going to play. I've heard people referring it to like they're going to play like basketball. They're going to throw things high. They got people who are big. They got people who've got good ups on them, and they're going to go throw it high, go throw it long, and Drake London should benefit from that as well. And we're quickly back on the board. We got some of those people we still talk about. Matt Ryan still there, of course. He would have been the guy throwing to Drake London, but he's not anymore. We got Amon-Ra St. Brown. James Conner still there, who you talked about as well, as some people peeking up at there like Derek Carr and Mike Williams too. Is anyone standing out to you?
Yeah, James Conner's still here, so we got to take James Conner. Let's keep beefing up that running back room.
Yeah, James Conner, who I think they would be stupid to not use James Conner just exactly like they did last year. Just get him, sniffing in and around the goal line, just touchdown machine last year. And I think that's just going to continue to grow this year. He really impressed. And if he can stay healthy, and obviously he's kind of got that put together now, then he should be fine.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. All right, we're back on the clock, and there are still some QBs on the board. A little bit of a run on tight ends here, which is interesting to see.
Yes, and you're right. Oh, look at that. QBs and wide receivers, and that's it, sitting on the board right there. So, Baker and Jared Goff, I thought you'd be interested in them right now. There's rumors of Baker being traded to Carolina, but it's kind of hard to take him now before he's moved.
Right. I'm not interested in either of those guys. So right now, for me, the QB board, I look at Daniel Jones. I know Brian Dable just came over to New York, so that's a little bit of an interesting situation. Can Daniel Jones step up in the game? A little bit of a Josh Allen light, maybe, if Dable can unlock some things with him. We got Kenny just drafted in the first round, so we know he's going to take over that starting job sooner rather than later. We know there's that issue where people with his hands being a little too small, is that going to affect his throwing of the football? It didn't really seem to at Pitt, but with the NFL, you never know. And then we got Davis Mills, who was a bit of a pleasant surprise in Houston last year. Admittedly, the weapons over there aren't too great, but he showed an ability to kind of succeed even with the limited ability, which is what you want to see in a QB. So the options are there. And obviously Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think Trey Lance is going to be a starter sooner rather than later. So we're gonna go with the QB, more recent pedigree, who I think is going to start sooner rather than later, despite Mitchell Trubisky's presence. We're going to take Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I think Kenny Pickett is a great shot here. I mean, I think that maybe there might be a slight battle with Mitchell Trubisky, but I can't see them drafting. You know, one of the podcasts I listened to is the Peacock and Williamson podcast, and Matt Williamson said, you know, he still works as a scout for Pittsburgh, and he's like, there isn't a team in the draft that knows more about a player than Pittsburgh Steelers know about Kenny Pickett coming in from Pitt. So they know him inside out, and they've picked him to be the guy. Like, he's not coming in to mess around. So he's going to be the guy going forward, and, you know, locking up, you know, starting quarterback at the back of the 9th round, the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. It's fantastic, I think. So great value there. I think he's going to be a hit over in Pittsburgh, and we're back on the board in round number 10, and most of those players are still there, along with some new people. Juju Smith-Schuster creeping onto the board, as well as, you know, Christian Watson is there as well, who's an intriguing pick at this point. So is anyone looking good to you there?
Yeah, I think we're going to go with a little more of a proven guy here, and a guy who's going to have arguably maybe the best quarterback in football throwing in the football. Pardon the repetition there, but Juju Smith-Schuster is the pick here. He's going to have Patrick Mahomes throwing in the ball. He's going to be, I guess, probably the number 2 receiver, I suppose, technically, because Travis Kelce, as far as I'm concerned, is the number 1 receiver. Yeah. But that means a lot of targets and a lot of opportunities, especially with the vacancy of Tyreek Hill. So I believe Juju Smith-Schuster is going to see a lot of opportunity, and that could potentially lead to a wide receiver 1 season. And we got to remember, Juju's not that old. He's only 25 or 26 years old, so he's still got plenty of life left in him. And being in KC is only going to serve to help him. So that's the pick.
Yeah, I like Juju coming in there. You know, I'm a Chiefs fan myself, so I'm quite excited about what he can do. And, you know, I really like that he's only on a 1-year deal, which sounds kind of crazy, but I like that he's got that, you know, you got to prove it kind of deal. So I think it's either, you know, step up or shut up, and he's got to prove it. I think that might do him the world of good. So let's get Juju locked in and put him into that wide receiver room. And we got a little bit of a wait now into round number 11, as some of these quarterbacks do start flying off the board. Lots of wide receivers as well. Is anyone sort of standing out for any position you're thinking about now coming into round 11, or is it still just best player available?
I think we're still best player available because we have starters at every position now, so we can kind of afford and just let the board fall to us instead of reaching on the board.
Yeah, I really like it. So in terms of best players available, you know, Tom Brady's still there. Robert Woods. I think Robert Woods is going to have an absolutely stunning season next year. I think a lot of people are, you know, kind of forgetting that he's in Tennessee almost, but I think Robert Woods is a quality receiver, and, you know, he's the experienced guy there now. So I think he'll see a lot of targets from Tannehill, who's, you know, all of a sudden Tannehill's playing for his job, so he's going to throw to someone that you can trust, and Robert Woods is someone that you can trust. So I like him in there.
There are a lot of names right now on this board that are extremely tempting. Robert Woods stands out right there after that trade of A.J. Brown, because I don't think Treylon Burks is going to step in right away and be elite. So that leaves Robert Woods as the one target that Tannehill can rely on. We got Kadarius Toney, who I think kind of wants to be be a little bit like a Deebo Samuel type with the Giants, and I try to do their best to keep him involved in that offense. We got Hunter Renfrow, who I think could have an opportunity to eat up targets with teams focused on Waller and Devontae Adams. Yeah, we got Scott Moore, Kansas City Chiefs draft pick right there, who I think is perfect for that offense. Yeah, and then we got, you know, a little further ways down the board, George Pickens, who I think just fits Pittsburgh perfect. Who won't step in as a wide receiver 1 right away, but I think in a couple of years could be a wide receiver 1. But again, I want to get a little more solid veteran value, so I think we're going to take Robert Woods. Yeah, because I still think one of these other guys will be on the board in a few picks. We can get him. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think Robert Woods is a great pick here, and yeah, like I said, I think Robert Woods is going to have a really, really good season, and, you know, we're right on the board straight away. So we're going to get someone who's good coming right off here at pick number 3 in the 12th round. So let's see who's still available. You know, Hunter Renfrow and Sky Moore are still there, like you talked about them a little bit earlier, and yeah, we're looking a bit thinner at running back with, you know, Singletary, Madison, and another Kansas City Chief, Ronald Jones, still sitting there.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm going to go with George Pickens. I really think he has the ability of any receiver left on his board to develop into an honest-to-God bona fide wide receiver 1, you know, before the time comes. He's got that alpha mentality. You know, he's not afraid to get in your face. He almost reminds me a little bit of Odell Beckham Jr. a little bit back when he was with the Giants, where, you know, he's an alpha. He's not afraid to show it, and he's got the talent to back it up.
Yeah, and, you know, the Steelers don't really like giving those big contracts to the wide receivers anyway, so it could be, you know, that Deontay Johnson's out the door next year, Claypool's out the door the year after, and all of a sudden Pickens is the guy. So I like that. Pickens, coming in. He could be the potential wide receiver 1 with the quarterback you just drafted earlier. So, yeah, you got to love that 1-2 punch potential. So let's get George Pickens locked into that wide receiver room, which is growing stronger and stronger. So let's see as Sky Moore comes off the board. And Dalton Schultz. Oh, Dalton Schultz, one of the first tight ends off the board, really, there. That's interesting. And, so someone has taken Julio Jones going in the 13th round. That's an interesting one. A very brave team over there.
Khalil Herbert. We just got sniped. I would have loved Khalil Herbert.
I like me some Khalil Herbert as well. I think he's got potential to take David Montgomery's job next year. You know,
he's going to be a free agent. That could be Herbert's backfield sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think so.
But looking at who's there now, admittedly not the greatest selection, but I think a guy right here or two guys right here who I do have my eye on are James Cook in Buffalo, as well as Raheem Mostert in Miami, because I think Miami is going to be a little interesting because they did just sign Chase Evans, but I think Mostert's kind of going to be that like first and second down running back, change of pace speed guy, but the injuries are concerned. Whereas with James Cook, I feel like he's going to kind of step right in, at least in the receiving role, and maybe spell Devin Singletary here and there, because clearly Zach Moss has been bumped off the depth chart.
Yeah, he's gone.
For a longer-term outlook, James Cook may even be able to step into a starter's role when Singletary's contract runs out. So I think James Cook, we're going to go with James Cook here.
Yeah, I like James Cook. He's got, that kind of, you don't kind of draft James Cook just to have him. Like they've got a plan in Buffalo, and I think he's going to be the perfect outlet for Josh Allen, he's going to look to run first, and if there's nothing there, he can dump it off James Cook, and he'll do some damage in there. So let's get James Cook locked into our team, and maybe some of those guys will still be there at the start of round number 14. Raheem Mostert too on the last show. I said if he doesn't get injured next season, I will give £100 to charity, because he is 100% definitely going to get injured. He can't stay healthy, unfortunately. So here we go. Round number 14. Will Fuller sitting up at the top. Will he end up being Cleveland Brown? He seems to like following Desean Watson about, so maybe he will end up there. Who knows? Anyone standing out to you?
Raheem Mostert still on the board, but the player on this board that stands out from the rest is Johan Dawson. We got to remember he was drafted in the first round, so the Commanders are clearly very high in his abilities. And with a better quarterback, by comparison, at least to some of the other guys have had in Carson Wentz, who kind of by default is the best quarterback Washington's had in a little while, probably since maybe RG3. So I think having him there, he brings a unique game-breaking ability to kind of complement Terry McLaurin really well, and obviously he'll be around long term. So I think we're gonna go with Johan Dawson here. Screaming value, first round pick.
Yeah, I like Johan Dawson, and I also like Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz gets a bad rap. Like Carson Wentz was top, what was he, quarterback 14, quarterback 13 last year. I think just kind of it fell apart a little bit at the Colts for him, but I think in terms of fantasy football, Carson Wentz is always good value and always produces well. So, and his wide receivers always do pretty well too. So I think Johan Dawson will follow suit and end up doing really well as a wide receiver there in Washington. And here we are running through the rest of round number 14, coming into round number 15. And usually round number 15, whenever I flick up the draft board and show people who's there, everyone's reaction is usually underwhelmed, I'll say. So let's have a look and see who we've got still available in round number 15.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest, but it's also not the worst. I think there are some talented players here. Actually, guy on the board here who I'm gonna take because I'm not confident in Kenny Pickett's ability to start right away. We're gonna take Marcus Mariota because we do know he's going to be the starter in Atlanta. We already have Drake London. Stack that for at least a couple years until Atlanta gets their quarterback of the future. And Marcus Mariota has a two-way ability. He showed it in this little bit of time he got with the Raiders. So I still think he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Yeah,
I really like that Marcus Mariota locked in and, might have that perfect mix of if Mariota goes out and Ritter comes in, you're hoping that Pickett will kind of come in at that same time as well. So hopefully that kind of timeline will stay the same across the NFL. So let's get Mariota locked in and, he can pick up some fantasy points while we're waiting for Pickett to become the starter. And we're back on the board with our third last pick. And we got Cam Newton at the top, but let's just actually do that because I don't think you've got anything to do with Cam Newton. So Nico Collins sitting at the top, Josh Palmer, along with like Wan'Dale Robinson and some other interesting rookies still there too. Is anyone standing out?
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson stands out here. Giants second round pick. Admittedly, people kind of see him as a Kadarius Toney light, where a short, shifty wide receiver can make people miss. Maybe not as explosive as Kadarius Toney can be. And I think there could be a role for him because Sterling Shepard just has contract restructured, injury history. He's not going to be around too long. I think the Giants are going to look to give up Kenny Galladay's contract as well. Because that was looking like an albatross after last year. So I think that would leave, Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson as the wide receivers in that Giants room. So I think that would mean opportunity sooner rather than later. And at this point in the draft, that's something you can take advantage of. So let's lock in Wan'Dale.
I think Wan'Dale Robinson's got an excellent opportunity, especially if Kadarius Toney keeps, showing this kind of disaffection towards the Giants in general that he has right now. That, this new board and this new coaching room and everyone might just be like, you know what? You're not playing, man. I'm playing Wan'Dale Robinson instead of you. If you're going to spit the dummy out and throw the toys out the pram, then you can sit on the bench or you can get traded, and we're going to play Wan'Dale Robinson. So there's an interesting path for him there, and I think it might not be right away because I'm not a believer in Daniel Jones really, but that new boardroom is going to draft the quarterback of the future soon, and they're going to be throwing to Wan'Dale Robinson. So hopefully that's whenever you'll be able to see something good happening. And we got some interesting people flying off the board. Desmond Ritter just going there as well as Evan Ingram. Alan Lazard going deep in the 17th round. He's got some interesting value now as well at the Packers, like the kind of default wide receiver one at the Packers right now. But we're on the board now with our second last pick.
Oh, okay. I can tell you right now, we're taking Brevin Jordan. I want another tight end. He's a young, interesting tight end. I think he and Davis Mills can form a bit of a dynamic because there really isn't too much there besides Brandon Cooks and I suppose Nico Collins. So relying on a quality tight end is important. I think Brevin Jordan can be that guy, at least for now, maybe not for the future, but at least for now in the next couple seasons, because I don't think with so many other pressing needs in that roster, tight end is not going to be something that's entirely focused on too much. So I think Brevin Jordan will have a chance to stick around. Yeah,
I like Brevin Jordan. I think he showed well. With the opportunities that he's got another year linked up with Davis Mills. Yeah, I like Brevin Jordan. And he's not really someone that you need to worry about, starting. He's probably more of a bye week kind of guy. But yeah, Brevin Jordan, good player that you can slot in and hopefully he'll do well for you. So is our final pick, Chuck? You've got a lot of talent still on the board.
Yes, we do, Connor. Zamir White on the Raiders. And this is because the Raiders declined Josh Jacobs' fifth-year option, making him a free agent after this coming season, which clearly shows a lack of faith in Josh Jacobs and his ability. And they drafted Zamir White in, I believe, the third or fourth round, which is a decent amount of capital to spend, considering you could probably get a quality starter at another position. So clearly they like on Zamir White, which means he could step into the starting running, considering that you don't typically spend two running back position. So I think this could be some sneaky value, especially in the 18th round, getting a guy who could be a starter next year and at least at worst, a backup this year, maybe a change of pace back. This is great.
Yeah, I love Zamir White. Zamir White is by far the player I've drafted the most of this year because I just see, you can just see that tunnel right through, starting not next year, but the year after. He's going to be the starter. He's good enough. He's talented enough. And I think Zamir White in the 18th round is great value. So let's get him locked up as we round off the draft with, we've got Brian Robinson, Washington's 400th running back that they have on the roster.
Yeah, and Jared Patterson goes a couple later.
Yeah, crazy. So let's have a look. Who was the very last pick? We had David Njoku and Mike Davis. Wow, Mike Davis, the last guy coming off the board. That's great. Well, someone's a big believer in Mike Davis. So let's have a look at how our team shaped up then after our hot seat. Gotta say, Chuck, the hot seat didn't seem to get too hot for you there. You seemed to be fairly cool the whole way through it.
Yeah, it's just a matter of staying calm. And again, I said this before. Don't reach on your board. I said this earlier. Just let the draft come to you. See who falls to you. Take the values. Guys whose ADPs kind of drop a little bit, take advantage of it. Don't reach for a guy, especially if it means it costs you a player you might want a little later on who you can get.
100%. So let's see how that ended up then. We end up with our 3 quarterbacks with Lamar Jackson and then Kenny Pickett and Marcus Mariota in the quarterback room. You've got a great haul of running backs. You got Javonte Williams, Breece Hall, James Conner. You've got potentially 3 running back ones there, if things fall the right way. Then you got James Cook and Zamir White running out the running back room. For wide receiver, you got Keenan Allen, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Juju Smith-Schuster, Robert Woods, George Pickens, Johan Dawson, and Wan'Dale Robinson. And then you got Mark Andrews and Brevin Jordan at tight end. You got to be thrilled with that, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was to simply get pieces at least one long-term piece at each position, and also get you some veterans who can help you now. I tried to mix in some veterans with some rookies because we do have some rookies at wide receiver, with Wilson, London, Pickens, Dotson, and Wan'Dale. But I also tried to mix that in. So we also got Keenan Allen, we got Juju Smith-Schuster, we got Robert Woods. So some of these rookies don't really start out the gate too hot right away. We could plug in our veterans and let them kind of, hold things down. Same thing at running back. If for some reason Breece Hall, doesn't end up being, the guy right out the gate, I know James Conner will be. And I can just start him and Javonte Williams. And the same thing, the starter, I'll start Marcus Mariota alongside Lamar Jackson in my super flex. It's really not that big a deal. I have options. So that's the whole point. Give yourself versatility and flexibility.
Yeah, and you've definitely shown it here. You got lots of flexibility what to do. You got some safe options. You got some super high upside options as well that you can plug in. So yeah, I think you've done an absolutely smashing job.
Thank you.
And awesome, man. Just want to say, guys, everyone listening and watching, just thank you so much once again for tuning in. And if you've liked this episode, then make sure, especially on YouTube, if you're listening on a podcast, see if you can head over to YouTube, give this video a thumbs up if you've liked this episode with Chuck, because he could end up here on the Hall of Flame. Yeah, we got Murph, we got Kev, and we got Ali sitting in the top 3 of the Hall of Fame right now. If you've enjoyed this episode, give Chuck a thumbs up. Let's see if we can get him up into the top 3 of the Hall of Flame. And yeah, guys, thanks for listening. Make sure you've subscribed. Make sure you've liked it. Make sure you've done all that good stuff. And, keep yourself well. Keep yourselves and your teams lit. See you next time. Bye.